A possible breakthrough for South Sudan rather. The country's rebel leader is in Ethiopia to meet with South Sudan's President Salva Kiir. It will be the first time the two sides have met since widespread violence broke out last December. Thousands have already died and around 1 million people have fled their homes. The United Nations has warned the violence could eventually turn to genocide. So just how significant is it that the two sides are talking? That's a question I posed to Akshaya Kumar from the Enough Project.
Yeah, I think many people are encouraged by this as an important step in the right direction, but it's critical to be cautious here. These two men meeting face to face for the first time since violence has broken out is a necessary step to end the fighting in South Sudan, but it's not sufficient to actually bring a durable and lasting peace to the region. That's going to require a much more inclusive conversation beyond just these two men, to include other stakeholders, civil society groups, and others who have been kept on the sidelines until now.
Much of the international community is not optimistic that something will come out of this one meeting, or no results really will come out of it. But there's been talk about sanctions to both sides if this thing continues. Do you see that as a way to influence this process?
Definitely. The targeted sanctions can really play an important role in putting some leverage on both sides to make the concessions necessary to move forward in the peace process. Already, the United States took the unilateral step of issuing a targeted sanctions regime and then actually designating two individuals, generals, who have been implicated in serious human rights abuses, one from the rebel side and one from the government side. But the specter of these targeted sanctions and the possibility for them to actually extend regionally to Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, places where these leaders have assets, could really be something that could bring them to make some of those tough decisions and concessions.
The numbers in this conflict are astounding. The number of people that have been killed, displaced. How do you prevent this violence turning into a full-blown genocide?
The ethnic nature of the killing in particular is incredibly concerning and deeply worrying. And the one thing that the international community could do right now is to authorize additional troops who have the capacity to actually fight to protect civilians, to come into South Sudan. South Sudan actually has a robust UN peacekeeping mission. Thousands of troops are already on the ground, but they were there for a different purpose, and they're just not equipped or ready to deal with this challenge. They've already done quite a lot by housing and sheltering these people for almost 5 months now, but to really protect them from the onslaught of mob violence or attacks by either of the armed forces, we need a more robust fighting force.
So what do you think is a realistic first step in ending the violence? There's the supposed ceasefire in place. Do you think that will hold?
Well, these two sides signed that agreement in January, and here we are in May, and the fighting has still continued. But we've had a renewed recommitment to that ceasefire, and there's also been a lot of discussion of a month of silence for May. And that's really critical because South Sudan is also at the very brink of perhaps facing one of the deadliest famines that we've seen in East Africa in over a decade. And that's because people haven't been able to go out and plant their crops, and so there's little hope for food to be available in the coming months. And if this month of silencing guns and tranquility proceeds, then we have one chance to avoid a really massive humanitarian catastrophe.
All right, Akshaya Kumar, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us on this show.
You're welcome. Thank you.